The holy and glorious Hieromartyr Charalambos lived during the reign of Emperor Septimius Severus. He served as a priest in Magnesia of Asia Minor, near the Meander River and Ephesus. At that time, the governor of the city was Lucianus, a harsh and ruthless fanatic idolater. The venerable elder had completed 107 years of life in piety and devotion. He had exercised his priestly ministry for many years and taught the Christians with unceasing zeal. He preached to all the faith of Christ and the way of truth without any fear. He never heeded the threats of the idolaters, nor the dangers that threatened him every day. Some then denounced him as a dangerous agitator and brought him before the tribunal of Lucianus. The elderly priest responded to the governor's harsh threats with admirable courage and bravery of faith. He told him that nothing was more pleasing to him than suffering torments for Christ. He challenged him to torture his aged body with every unbearable means he deemed fit. He wished to prove to all those present the invincible power of his Lord and God. The executioners stripped him of his priestly vestments and tore his flesh with iron claws without pity. Yet they could not extract even a single cry of pain from this steadfast athlete of faith. On the contrary, the saint thanked them and told them they were renewing his soul and preparing it for glory. Governor Lucianus was then seized by a wild and unbridled fury against the elderly holy martyr. He rushed upon Saint Charalambos and set about tearing the skin from him with his own hands. Suddenly, however, by divine intervention, his hands were severed and hung motionless on the body of the martyr. Saint Charalambos took pity on the tyrant and healed him through the power of his prayer to Christ. Before this astonishing miracle, the executioners Porphyrios and Baptos immediately believed in the true God. They renounced the worship of idols and publicly confessed their faith in Christ with courage. 3 women who were present also boldly proclaimed their Christian faith without fear. The grateful Lucianus, after his miraculous healing, was baptized a Christian, and a great number of inhabitants turned to Christ. Emperor Severus learned that the inhabitants of Magnesia were abandoning the idols and receiving baptism. He was greatly disturbed and immediately sent 300 armed soldiers with orders to arrest the elderly priest. He ordered them to pierce the saint's body with nails and lead him in chains to Antioch. Along the way, the soldiers mercilessly mistreated the elder and tortured him without any mercy or compassion. Then the horse upon which they had placed him suddenly acquired a human voice by divine power. It condemned the emperor as an enemy of God and the soldiers as servants of the wicked devil. The soldiers were terrified by the miracle and continued on their way without harming the martyr any further. Severus ordered them to pierce the saint's chest with a spit and cast him into the fiery furnace. Charalambos, however, remained completely unaffected by the pain, and the fire was extinguished the moment it touched him. The emperor then brought him a demon-possessed man who had suffered for 35 whole years. With a single word, the saint cast out the unclean spirit and freed the wretched man. He also raised from the dead a young man they were about to bury, as if waking him from a deep sleep. The prefect Crispus asked the emperor to put the priest to death immediately, without further delay. He claimed that the elder managed to perform these miracles only through the power of dark sorcery. Severus was seized by a new, wrathful fury and ordered them to crush the saint's jaws. By divine intervention, the flame of the torches suddenly turned upon the executioners, and an earthquake shook the place. The emperor was snatched from his throne and suspended in the air for a long time without ceasing. Invisible angels scourged him ceaselessly before the eyes of all who watched this terrifying spectacle. Severus's daughter Gallene begged the martyr with tears to free her father. She confessed the Almighty Christ and renounced the worship of false idols with boldness and courage. The emperor was freed from the punishment, but immediately afterwards succumbed again to the madness of dark idolatry. He imprisoned the saint and subjected him to new cruel tortures, despite his daughter's rebukes. Gallene entered the pagan temple and destroyed the statues of the false gods with daring and courage. Severus ordered new idols to be made, but his daughter smashed them once again. Severus attempted one final time to subject the brave elder Charalambos to tortures. The saint, however, stood firm as a rock against every means of torture the executioners devised. He shone before the eyes of all with the radiant light of divine grace and the eternal glory of God. He accepted the sentence of death with joy and gladness and proceeded to the place of execution. He raised his eyes and hands to heaven and thanked God with fervent prayer. He asked the Lord that those who honor his memory be granted salvation of soul and bodily health. He also prayed for an abundance of blessings and good things in this life and in the age to come. A heavenly voice was then heard calling him to partake in the joy and glory of the martyrs. His head was severed by the sword on the 10th of February, and the blessed Galen buried his remains. Saint Charalambos, as the oldest martyr, remains especially beloved to the devout Orthodox people.